Hello, everyone, and welcome to the North America #1 edition of Hotline League. We have a European on the show that we'll be beating up over the course of it. But first, let me introduce our co-host for the evening, none other than Cubby. Cubby, how's it going?
Doing well. Still fighting the cold from last week, but voice is okay. And yeah, excited for this episode. I think that this has been a great tournament so far. Not if you're an EU fan, but that's okay. We've been there before, Travis.
Yes.
It happens at times. But yeah, I mean, excited to have Jamada. I think that we're gonna have some EU questions for sure that people want answered, and I think this is a really winnable series coming up for FlyQuest potentially.
Oh,
So I think
okay.
a lot of fans can at least be excited to call in and have some hope for them at home.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get to introducing our guest, even though Cubby spoiled it, I will say that we are doing this on a Sunday, and I saw some people in chat being like, "Wait, this is not Monday." Well, tomorrow Monday, during the time when we normally do the show, CFO versus AL will be happening. So it makes sense to do it on the one day where there's no matches happening. Otherwise, we'd be literally having to stream against that. So that is why we're doing this on Sunday. Also, want to mention that we might not have an episode for a couple of weeks after this, which I know we don't normally go on a multi-week break, but because EWC is starting and we don't cover EWC for a variety of reasons, which you can learn about on my YouTube channel, there will not probably be episodes for a couple weeks. So I apologize for that, but I anticipate the week that we come back should be a pretty big one. So uh, yeah, that's what's up. But let me introduce our guest for the week, none other than Jamada. Jamada, welcome back to the show.
Good evening. Yeah, I've been dragged here by my ankles to be, no doubt, humiliated in some capacity by the
Yes.
North American audience
No, I look here's
and callers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean there'll be maybe a little bit of that, but I will say that it wasn't until last week's episode when you called in and you said that you felt like FlyQuest was the only chance for the West at this event that I finally understood how rough EU fans and analysts were feeling about their chances. Obviously, G2 at that point in time had already shown that they were struggling, but I know that it was surprising that Jojo Pion and friends were here, but I don't know. You were at no point in time in the previous episode were you saying, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna stomp FlyQuest or AU's better." So I
Uh,
want to give you your
yeah,
dues, you know?
I called it.
Yeah,
It felt like pretty low hanging fruit, to be fair. But yeah, not too surprised. And yeah, like you've also said, I'm sure we will be getting our fair share of callers about the West,
yeah,
but specifically, of course, Europe.
yeah, yeah. So we'll talk about all that on the episode. I really hope we get a lot of great callers tonight because I feel like this is one of the more interesting episodes of Hotline that we've been able to do in a while with a lot of different stuff to talk about. So. I do want to give a shout out to NZXT for sponsoring the show. They've been fantastic. One of the things that they did recently, or that they're doing right now, as I pull up my conversation with them, is they are doing a really cool event called with the NZXT Club. It's NZXT X Int'l Club, where they're offering exclusive giveaways for the PC gaming community. So go check all that out. I'll go ahead and share a link to that sign up in the chat, but we'll talk more about it later on. I just wanted to give it a shout out at the start of the show. Also, want to say thank you to Enchanted Travel for the trip that they sent me on a little bit ago. We've talked about it in some of the other content and some of the other episodes, but this is as this is the last episode we'll be chatting about them, so I want to make sure that people have heard about them and want to show my appreciation for the stuff they did. So thank you to Travel. We'll talk more about them as the episode continues. But the other thing I want to say is that the show's starting a little late because I just got dinner with Mark Zimmerman, who is officially landed in Vancouver. And we went out to dinner, and then I said, I think I might be able to take you back to the hotel, but I might be a little late. And he said, I would not have come if you had told me there was a chance I had to Uber, even though Riot Games pays for his Ubers. So I had to take him back to his hotel room. He's Now that he's commissioner, he just demands executive level services, which
Helicopters
unfortunately,
only, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
A seaplane.
yeah.
Actually, we ate near the what I guess it's like the body of water that is down near the Olympic torch thing, and so that was a cool spot. But there were seaplane. We were watching seaplanes take off and land from the restaurant we were at, which is pretty cool. All right, what interesting things have happened in the last week, Cubby?
Well, MSI, we've made a lot of progress in that tournament as we said goodbye to 2 teams. We have no more EU teams at the event. And outside of that, Travis, I'm not sure what kind of movement we've had globally with rosters. Um,
I,
I know that's there's been so much news, I almost can't track
there
like it
was
all now.
a DSG
Um,
official announcement or something, I think, or maybe like a report. I'll be honest, I've
Darkwing's
just
been for
been
DSG.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I think what it was. I'll
yeah.
be honest, I have been like so honed in on MSI because I've been at the studio basically every day. Um, that I haven't been paying attention to too much else, but I do feel like MSI has been. I think, and I know that you folks watching this are not going to feel this way, but I do think this is shaping up to be one of the best international events ever. And that's not just because of the EU NNA situation. It's like the viewership has been really good, despite it being in a not great time zone. The matches have been amazing. The fact that we keep getting silver scrapes has been really cool. I don't know. Maybe this is the effects of Fearless or whatever, but I've just been really enjoying it. We've seen a lot of great plays, and it does seem like I know EU has not been doing great, but I do feel like there's been much better parity at this tournament than we normally see. So between all the different regions. So
You,
yeah,
you have thoughts on that at all, Jamada? Or
No, no, no. There'll be plenty of thoughts to share throughout the episode. I'm excited.
yeah.
Uh,
all right.
uh,
All right. Excited. That's
yeah.
an interesting choice of words,
Yeah.
Jamada. Usually when you get
Well,
someone like on a show like this, you're like excited to have tomatoes thrown at you.
look.
That takes a special type of
So
person.
so there is this thing which is mildly unique to me, which is going to seem like a bit of a cop out. Um, but I haven't really been like a dedicated EU fan for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I support the region that pays me. This year, I'm not on a tier one broadcast.
Mm.
Chilling on the NLC. I have a bit of a seat of exclusivity or a
Oh.
neutrality rather that I haven't had in 2.5 years. So coming to an international is like I can, I'll always have a soft spot for whoever the European representative is, but my job this year has been to analyze all 4 regions or all major regions.
True.
Really, I haven't been keeping up with CFO enough, and the APAC region enough. So honestly, this is like the most neutral I think I've ever been, simply through virtue of watching so much bloody League of Legends. It's kind of unreal.
Yeah.
Um, Also, EU suck. It would just not like it would not be fun to like even put myself in like if it was competitive, then maybe, but I'm not in for that hurt right now. Maybe 2026 if when I'm a little bit more emotionally available. We can talk about a renegotiation deal in the contract.
I appreciate this. Well, then we will. I'll refrain from implying you are the E representative of the show, given your current state of
He talked his
neutrality.
way out of the stockades,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Well, then I think the majority of the show will probably be about MSI, both the stuff that's been happening for the past week and also the stuff that's coming up in the following week as we get back into the matches tomorrow. And yeah, we can kind of go from there. Do we have takes lined up yet, Cubby?
Got a couple lined up and looking for more.
Okay.
Obviously, right now it's a little bit EU heavy, and I'm gotta say we still have one Western representative left in FlyQuest who do have a big match coming up against BLG, who did not look good as they got spanked by T1. Who would have thought that Beishuan for Shun would matter more than Dort instead of Zeus in terms of that matchup by a lot. But yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
yeah,
Well, why don't we go grab our first caller and then we'll add
let's
some
do
more
it.
to the call throughout the evening. So thank you to Saseshi for the 17 months. Very much appreciate it. Over on YouTube, no super chats or members yet, but do want to mention that now is a pretty good time to be a YouTube member because we have a bunch of interviews. I can't. Somebody was getting angry at me for they saw that there were so many videos up for members. I upload my interviews as members only in the beginning because I can't release all of them all at once because YouTube will not surface them all at once. So YouTube basically wants you to release about a video a day or so. Um, and I will have to break that video a day thing whenever I'm here because I'm making more than a video a day. But it does let you go see interviews early because I can't release them all at once to the regular feed, but member stuff lets you. And I also did a vlog from MSI, which was the voted on thing for June. So yeah, you can go take that look over on YouTube for just $2.99. Yami is here. Yami, where are you calling from?
Ah, you got it right last week. Um, it's the long A, Yami. Um, I'm calling from DC. And I have more of a question than a take, which is for Jamada as a neutral non-EU representative, but someone who spent a little bit of time paying attention to the EU scene, you could say. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on why EU has been declining kind of the past 2 or 3 years. And if you had any thoughts and or feelings about EU kind of going down the NA route of like, okay, well, we'll just import like challenger Korean players or I'm trying to think of a nicer way of saying washed former
No,
pros.
no, be as blunt as you need to be. It's
But
fine.
washed, yeah, like washed former pros who maybe couldn't find a spot in LCK, LPL teams. Um, and I'm curious because I don't really feel like NA's been getting substantially better. Like the gap seems to have widened, but it doesn't feel like it's something like NA suddenly becoming like an amazing region. It feels like it has been mostly a decline of EU.
Sure. So when I was here last week, I mentioned that I felt like the top two teams in NA were better than top two teams in Europe, but I would take the top four teams from Europe over the top four teams of NA. Um, and I think this kind of very gently answers your question a little bit. The best players in Europe are kind of scattered across the top teams right now in the league, as opposed to the concentration that's currently existing, in my opinion, in NA. So that's like one factor I think you can talk about. If you were to ask someone, what their all pro 1-2, LEC looks like, it's gonna be a mixture of players from KC, players from G2, players from Koi, and by players I mean Alvaro, and then maybe an upset call here and there. It's not gonna be, all first pro. This obviously Koi won spring, so it's not gonna be all Koi first and then G2 all second. Um, like it kind of is to a point ish with LTA. So I think that is part of the thing that we're experiencing right now. Is many teams have very strong individuals, but then also very obviously by international standards, weaker players, whether it be because they're less experienced or what have you, what have you. We don't really have a super team in Europe anymore. As of right now, there's an argument for Fnatic, right? Just on pure name like status ish, but
And
even that
ignoring
I
playoff
think is a bit of a
results.
stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Um, so that's the first thing. I do think, however, that regardless of that fact, it is very clear that the level of play hasn't been increasing, and I think it was masked a little bit by the competitiveness of the top half of the table. Usually,
Me
like kind
too.
of over the last 2 years, like the top three, top four, and then also like G2 running the league prior to that, I think also kind of alters perception if you're not looking at these teams analytically. And also you have to be analytically inclined, which not to flame the general audience, but the general audience is not particularly analytically inclined. So I continue to learn through many conversations I have. Um, so that doesn't help. I don't think Europe is going down the route, however, of importing like Koreans off rip like en masse. What I will say is mid year, it is significantly easier to acquire Koreans out of the Challenger League. Uh, that's usually the place. It's very rare that it will come from the LCK directly. Because pricing is normally easier. Because visas are very easy to acquire. And even in some cases, and it's funny because we spoke about this very literally 2 hours ago on Power Spike. even people from geographically closer locations are more difficult to get visas for than people from Korea. The process just seems to be easy. So, um, if it does go down that route, that would be what it's for. It really depends on the GMs, I think, in this particular, topic. If they get a little bit antsy and it's like, okay, like, let's say, and I don't think this of Ramon, but let's say like Ramon gets a little bit antsy with G2. The G2 project is like, stuff is going on behind the scenes. Okay, we need to get like a new support. We're importing like the newest Korean like hot. It's just not going to happen, I don't think. But if it did, I don't think it solves the problem either. So, and I think we just end up in square one where we still have these individually talented players domestically. Um, but there's no guarantee that these players from these imported regions will do much to solve the issue. So I think that that is a lot of the client issue is our players have become less concentrated in the top two teams, or like top one, and they've kind of spread out a little bit.
So,
Um, yeah,
kind of like to go on this, Jamada. Before I give some thoughts, like I have some other questions too. As someone that doesn't follow EU as closely,
sure. Mhm.
I've been talking to a few people behind the scenes about this. One person expressed to me that he feels like this is kind of the culmination of 3 years of ERLs and EMEA Masters becoming two win now, which I know might shock fans, as of course the Rats have walked in and won the last two splits. But uh, is that something that you somewhat agree with? That like, because for me, like, I view this also from the bottom up. I fully agree with you at
Mm,
the top. I think it's really hard to not argue. And
yeah,
frankly, I think it's a decent problem to have in EU that you have like four orgs that players seem to want to play for in G2,
yeah,
Fnatic, MKOI, and K Corp. Like,
mhm,
I mean, if we're in LTA North and you're sitting here like you don't want an org like MKOI or K Corp in your league, like you're trolling, right? Like, regardless of
yeah.
what you think of anything else. But I
Mhm,
also see like bottom up and kind of what you're talking about with the Korean visas just solving issues. Like I think of the last off season that you guys had from spring to summer last year. It
yeah,
was ice, it was Rahel, it was that like everyone just got imported into the region. And then it
yeah,
felt like the Travis revolving door, right? Where these players didn't stick around. And also there has been a real revolving door with other players that like have just been in and out of ERLs and LEC that like try and figure it out. So is
mm.
this more of a bottom I
You,
agree
you
with you from
you
the top
can,
down, but what's the bottom up
yeah.
thing?
Well, you know what? I'm not going to pretend like I'm super informed here because
Yeah.
especially since 2023, um, I haven't been as involved with like EME Masters, for example. So I've had less reason to keep up with the ERLs as
Yeah.
a whole. Also, it's like 8 different leagues below the major regions, all just in Europe concentrated. So it's hard to say. What I will comment on is I certainly don't think that that vote that passed, I think actually it was in 2023, it could have been in 2022, for the abolishment of mandatory academy teams, like did any favors in this, current setup that we have now. And obviously, it's been proven many, many times that like domestic rookies that come out of that system that are supported by the LEC teams in specifically, but like just playing in those environments can be integrated into the system, cough, cough, yike, and basically a majority of talent that we've had, you know, come in through that kind of golden age of kind of 2017, 18, 19, 20, that it works, right? So I think the fact that I can't, I'd have to look through all the leagues, but I think we're pretty close to, 50-50 on the teams that actually have academies uh, directly working from, the LEC.
Well, they're
Uh,
doing better than here, so, you know.
Yeah, I suppose so. Um, but it's still, to me, it's still not good enough. And like at least for me as someone who's like a very like traditional sports guy as well, uh, I I think it's a bit pathetic to be honest. I understand the financial side,
I
but
agree. No, the
I don't.
financial side is
I,
that you spend that money to save
But
money
yeah,
in the long
exactly.
run with cheaper contracts. They
Exactly.
don't see it that way. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So that is why I used the term pathetic. Like it's like cool, you're
Yes.
saving money ish now, I guess, but like it's supposed to be an investment for the future. Um and obviously that's not happening top to bottom anymore.
And well, I
So
mean,
I
look
don't
at
know
how
how much
other
of it is. I don't know how much of it is an issue because I don't feel like there's, to my knowledge, I don't think that teams are being put together to win now EMEA. Um, but also, as I kind of sit and think on it, the nature of the ERL system is that roster moves are significantly more frequent because
yeah.
contracts tend to only be a split long.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Um, so you will see entire rosters blow up, even if they're successful. Like you will see a roster win a league, and then like 2 or 3 players might change on that roster, and they're not the same roster from winter to spring. That's just the nature of the ERLs comparative to the major regions. So, I think it can't help. Basically, is the short answer to that question.
How
That
much
it's got to be hurting as well.
how much roster instability is existing in the LEC right now? Because I'm trying not to do the like
A lot.
confirmation bias thing, but it is interesting to me that at a time in which North America is increasing their stability of their rosters, people
Because they have
seem
less
to
money, Travis.
think, yeah, well,
Yes.
right, exactly. I'm not saying
Yes.
they're doing it because they are wise individuals, but
But it's helped.
it does feel
Yeah.
as though we have uh, been more consistent with our rosters and are seeing good results of that. And it's interesting to me that it sounds as though Europe has increased their volatility of their rosters and we're seeing decreasing results. Now, I'm smart enough to understand that like you could look at it from the other way, which is like, hey, we're yielding better results and thus we're decreasing volatility because we're like finding teams that we like and then we're less likely to trade and perhaps the opposite is happening in Europe where like, oh, they're not finding the performance so they're going to increase volatility. But I think it kind of becomes a chicken and the egg question there, but like I do wonder how much sort of the decision to bring in players from other regions and then get rid of them and do all this stuff like how much that impacts it. Um, the other question I had for you, Jamada, is that I've seen on social media, on Reddit, and a lot of places, fans seem to be decrying GMs. They're like, "Hey, these GMs don't know
Mm.
what they're doing, or they make a lot of dumb decisions." I was even just recently talking to somebody about like obviously this is kind of ancient history now, but like the decision for a while to move European talent to North America at times to avoid having to play against your good players whenever you remove them from your team, like these types of things that have gone on for a while. I don't know if this is, fans love to blame GMs and everybody, even in traditional sports,
Mm.
but I don't know if you feel like there's any merit to this.
No, there is. Um, I think it's relatively well documented. I mean, the obvious example I can just say is like, does anyone remember the last time Fnatic made like a sensible roster
Fnatic
decision?
Kobe.
Like
Yeah, like, what are we doing? Yeah.
outside of genuinely outside of like the freebies, like, hey, guys, Mickey X is a free agent, like it might be, or like Mickey X is on the market, it might be a good deal to get that guy. Um, and even then, if Mickey X either ended up teamless or not on Fnatic, I would have believed it. Like simply because that is how I feel about Fnatic's usual transfer market shenanigans. So, um, yeah, I think it's for sure a thing. You hear internal stories, very tongue in cheek mentions about like any given individual in any, like, most teams top to bottom, how there's someone who's doing things very very in a very like dictatorish way, and they don't really have much an idea of how a good roster gets made. What makes a good roster, things like team environment, player personalities, work ethic, culture, background, like all of these things meld in and are as important as how good are their clicks when it comes to League of Legends, because it's just such a complicated game. Um so yeah, I think there is a fair bit of merit. What I will also say is, if you've not been in those environments, the chances are you also probably don't know. Like there are very like obvious things that even if you've not been in those environments, again, Fnatic, you can tell when an org is making very silly decisions. Um, but sometimes it does feel as though we find an excuse or we find a reason because someone in a place of authority says so, and then we kind of parrot that thought or feeling as if we also have that authority. and in many cases it's obviously not the case. But here with the GM thing, like it's for sure, yeah, like GMs, managers, stuff of that nature. Uh, it's on record, man. There's so many so many times orgs have just done silly things, and you know,
Yeah. I mean, I think same thing over here, but again, when the top teams like are currently stable and doing well, like obviously you just don't hear a lot of that stuff. Even C9, right? Like their
mhm,
project bringing back some old people they're familiar with, and then adding Thanatos and Loki seems to be
yep,
really good. Um, so it feels like the projects over here just have had more direction. Whereas the projects in EU are a little bit spread out. And to be fair, I do think that part of the success of K Corp and MCOY is that they did actually were able to develop some people internally.
mhm,
'Cause I find the other funny thing, like, 'cause I was talking with some of my EU friends just to get a pulse on what's going on over there. For G2 specifically, I definitely got the impression from talking to a few folks that G2 more so like they felt like G2 as an org slightly struck gold with Yike and even BB
oh,
in
they
a
did,
way.
yeah.
And because, like, this next batch of Scheme into the Brob just hasn't panned out that way, that they almost feel like it is a bit of an indictment of, like,
You,
G2 as well, which it
you
always is
know,
with a player, right? Like, when a player comes in
for
and is successful, it can be the player and the org's fault always, right?
yeah, no, no, for sure, and
Yeah.
you know, I think it's quite funny because I was speaking with someone who's you know a part, used to be a part of like the G2 like fan like basically the G2 ultras, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about how they weren't particularly big fans of Scumond or of the Labrov trade, and you know, I did have to point out it because what they effectively said was we were winning, like why change? And whilst I definitely agree with the sentiment, there was kind of the pathway of how we got there was a little bit incorrect.
Yeah.
Um, and I think in that context, it's like you can definitely like blame X player, X team, or manager, etc. But in the position that G2 are in, just to like focus on them for a second, it was like a privilege to get bored of winning, which
Yes.
is effectively what spurred the change because obviously their goals were,
Or
you know,
international.
went beyond
Yeah.
domestic and they're international. Um, so I think for now, like, yes, is it obvious to a lot of people who, you know, watch close to fucking double digit games a day, like with intent of like drawing out habits and stuff of these teams, that Skumond is maybe not the most aggressive player and he doesn't really seem to serve much a purpose in volatile games, or he doesn't really feel like he's got much a way of stabilizing those games. Absolutely. Right. As for Labrov, there's a plethora of things I could talk
Yeah.
about with
That guy
Labrov
gets
too.
lost outside a map.
Um,
I called him,
yeah,
EU
and
Isles, and people kind of agreed.
I was,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Sadly, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is one of those
Yeah.
things where, like, for sure. So first off, they did strike gold of Yike.
Yeah.
Two, I just think it is a very silly GM move, and this is where I will criticize, you know, G2 for doing
Keep
this.
Mickey. Or
You
changing both is
can't,
silly. Yeah.
you can't get rid of both.
Yes.
You just
Yes.
you can't get rid of both at the same time.
Your entire
You have
system
to you
dies.
you have to pick one. If
Yeah.
like if change is gonna happen, it has to be one at a time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and at least for me, if like in those shoes, I would probably have dropped Yike, which sorry, I probably would have dropped Mickey X, which I feel like is probably the more unpopular opinion of the two.
Yeah. I'm on the
Um,
other side. Yeah.
but to me, whilst I'd definitely seen Yike choke in maybe some big moments and things like that, it he'd also shown up enough times that I could believe in him. And whilst you could definitely make the same argument for Mickey X, my problem was that his ceiling was extremely high, but his floor was extremely low.
Yeah.
And you never knew, you know, when you would wake up on a day and it's G2 Gen G, or it's G2 BLG, or it's, you know,
G2 FPX?
G2 NRG, you
G2
don't know
FPX?
what version, yeah, you don't know what version of Mickey you're going to get. And I feel like the gamble, and it's the narrative that a lot of people now in retrospect start to say, like, oh, I never saw it. But it is true, in my opinion at least, that Labrov was at the very least, no matter what you think of him, a
Good hands.
more consistent player
Yeah.
than Mickey was. But consistency does not necessarily mean better, right? In the case of League of Legends, that is the way it is. and things like consistency can be coached through and habit controlled through environment. So, and it seemed to not work with Mickey because that guy would do some crazy shit in games that, sure, introducing that kind of volatility could be good, but on many occasions in big games and in big moments, it wasn't good. So I was on the Mickey out train, not because I thought Mickey was bad or anything, but if push came to shove, that is the change that I would have made first. But getting rid of both of them is structural like suicide, basically. Like
Yeah.
you can't expect your team to function getting rid of your support and jungle in the first 6 months. And I think honestly, G2 getting to finals back to back is actually kind of a testament to how good the core that remained from last year to this year still is. Just for
Even
clarity,
with BB struggling, by the way,
Y-
like,
at,
yeah,
at times, yeah, I think with BB still played relatively well throughout the
it was
year.
more so this tournament.
Just
Yeah,
not
yeah,
obviously this tournament, not necessarily always up to his standard, but BB was still fucking great. I think
yeah, yeah.
the criticisms that I have with BB are more to do with his champion pool than his actual performances. Um,
Well, I
I do
will
think that
say,
BB. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Travis.
I'm just gonna say, now we're starting to talk about Europe too much. This was supposed to be the NA victory lap episode,
This has gone on
and
long.
we're gone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun.
So I don't want to get down to the BB train.
The nitty gritty. Yeah.
But I no, I appreciate Jamada because I think a lot of people in North America are just sort of like, wow, EU sucks now. What happened? And so it's nice to hear a little bit more of the nuanced conversation about what's going on there. And also, like, it's interesting to me because it does sound as though this is not something that's going to be solved by like Worlds. Like, we should not expect
Mm-mm.
EU to
No,
show
no,
up
no,
at
no, no,
Worlds
no.
and suddenly be like good,
Not with the roster
crushing
moves we're
people.
seeing.
Yeah,
I mean,
No,
Fnatic won't be there, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think Fnatic are gonna. We'll see. Maybe
I
Poby brings
I
some of the T1 magic.
so
Uh,
like I know that we've talked about this a lot, but there's like the other thing I'll just like add quickly. Uh the thing that like I question about the GMs there, or you get like these back and forths that players have, like 113 comes to mind, right?
mm,
And like what made him successful on the EMEA Masters runs? Why isn't he here? And why do the GMs keep on moving him back and forth? It feels too volatile for like that archetype of player. Like I feel like he needs a better bet. He had a good one with KC, but like hasn't had a good one since. The other one is like, what happens with a player like Irrelevant, where I think Irrelevant's good. I like from what I've seen when he was on SK. I haven't watched as much EU this year. Like I'm not doing the jungle, but that's a player where I'm like, wow, like can we move him up in terms of like the order, the biting order of like what teams want, right? I feel like
mm,
he hasn't had the same opportunity that I would see from him like in NA, right? I feel like that archetype of player, like in the past, actually would be able to move up the pool and like have a better team to play for in a sense. And I haven't felt that way about like I'm going to use Irrelevant as an example, but about some other players in EU where it's like, man, what happens if that guy gets a good team that's already in the league instead of going for like this ERL talent, right? So
mm.
I feel like when you get a lot of the hops and skips, and then some people in the middle like don't get stable bets, it ends up being again over 3 years. It just ends up getting
Yeah,
worse.
I
good
Yeah,
I
good
really
final
want to bite
thoughts,
on the
Cubby.
irrelevant point. Yeah,
yeah.
I really want to bite on the irrelevant point
Oh,
if I may, Travis. I know, I
really
know, I know.
quickly,
Uh, Very quickly.
we're gonna lose all
Yeah,
our
I just feel
listeners.
like
They came in to hear what
I'm
North
sorry,
America
I'm sorry,
rocks.
I'm sorry. I just feel like irrelevant in his specific position. There is no team in the top four that he can join because they all have top laners already.
Right.
So going from SK to BDS was unironically his best bet.
It was his best
I think
move. Yeah.
the problem with BDS was just the fact that they decided to drop Sheo. I
Mhm.
don't know what happened in off season. I don't know how that occurred, but going for 1-3, I think was absolutely criminal. If BDS probably held on to Sheo, kept irrelevant, they would probably be contesting inside of the top four.
Agree.
Is my best get.
I just think this
Yeah.
conversation's gotten kind of irrelevant. All right. Thank you so much, Yami, for the call. Anything you want to add on here, or any? I don't know if we want to do a full follow-up question, but anything you have as a final thought before I give you your shoutouts? Oh,
Um,
I thought you might have fallen asleep during
I'm-
this conversation.
no, I'm here. I was just gonna say, am I not audible?
Yeah,
No,
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 you're
we
fine.
got
No,
you.
we
It's
can
fine.
hear you.
You take a second.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was saying, do do we think that any of the decline is a mirage, or not? Is attributable to the how the format of tournaments have changed. Like, I don't know, is there EU cope going on? Like, oh, G2 only lost because they had to play 15 best of 5 or 15 games
That's the
before.
biggest cope. That argument's the biggest cope. If
No,
you don't want
that's
that,
big
play
cope.
better coming into the tournament.
What I will say, 'cause you mentioned formats,
Yeah.
Fearless. I feel like G2 would be an infinitely better team if they were allowed to draft the same, 5 to 13 champions every game. But Fearless doesn't allow for that to happen. They would be able to create a lot more of their version of stable League of Legends that I think probably makes them a significantly more successful team with the current lineup that they have. But again, Fearless makes that far more difficult to do. But the actual format of like playing X amount of no, like they had enough games to play. Um, they had plenty of time to scrim, etc. etc. Um, yeah, no, that's straight cope.
Yep. I just want to read
Okay.
here at the end. Space Uwu Cowboy and YouTube chat says Travis is the reason for the channel being whack. Always shutting Jamasa, Emily, Raz, and Chubby about anything he does not follow annoying. So I'm sorry to Jamasa and Chubby for shutting down their conversation. Thank you so much, Yami. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Um, I want to shout out my constant duo queue partner, Happy Blue Guy. Also want to shout out uh, League 2011 through 2024 non-fearless draft. You will be missed. Since Jamada mentioned it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time. All right. We have. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention, Cubby, while you're here, before you go grab the caller, it was very funny because somebody came up to this week and asked me for a picture, I think it was,
Yeah.
and his friends were like, "Yo, did you know this guy just called into your show?" And I was like, "Oh, you were on last week?" He's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "He had to take about AL being frauds." And he's like, "Yeah, I was wrong about that." And this was right after G2 had lost and I think went out of the tournament, and he was also a G2 fanboy, so he's like, "It's been a tough tournament for me."
Oh
But yeah,
no.
that was fun.
Shout out
So
to him for saying hey.
yeah, no, it was well. I think he
Oh,
was not going to disclose his identity until his friends, as friends do, threw him under the bus, which was really funny.
that hey, good friends. Good friends
Yeah,
right there.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Cubby's off to grab the next caller. Thank you to, where are we? Oh, a bunch of people subbed. Thank you. Uh, George Zulu, Perchy 99, Magnarius, Air Hydrius. I am Elvis for 78 months. Oh my gosh. Hobnobbin. Let's see. Itsuki 101, and then a Bowen with the 500 bits. Apple Thief, thank you for the 1 year. MTG Perry, hope you're doing well. I still use Dual Land all the time. Thank you for the 34 months. All right, our next caller is here. It's none other than Narfidy. Narfidy, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from sunny Lake Stevens, Washington.
Lake Stevens, Washington. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Um, since the guy at your who at the meet and greet outs himself, I guess I will too. Last month, I called in and said FlyQuest wasn't it. We were gonna have our worst MSI performance of all time after the 3-0 stomp of G2. Probably not in the cards anymore. However, that leads to my take, which is I don't think eliminating the worst team in the bracket stage is enough. And FlyQuest not only can beat BLG, but they have to beat BLG if they want to fly to the next tournament with the ability to call MSI a true success.
Okay, so you're saying FlyQuest does not have a successful tournament unless they beat BLG.
I think for their own standards, yes. I think just 3-0ing a very underperforming G2 is probably not the way they want to go out, if that makes sense.
I think this is fair. I don't know where you're at, Jamada, but I actually think it's fair.
I don't hate it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a solid way to curse your own team.
it is. I don't appreciate that, but
And also you did say that they'd have the worst MSI ever.
Wait, can we
if they did make it. Yeah.
yeah, so that was clearly wrong. But can we at
Uh,
least admit that they didn't like this was not a failure of a tournament if with
No,
how they've done? Like I feel like if even if they don't beat BLG, I don't think MSI was
no,
a
I'm gonna
failure
be
for
honest.
FlyQuest.
I'm gonna be honest. It would be.
I
Really?
in a way,
Yeah.
I think so too.
No, no, it would be. No,
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
I think that's kind of the heart of my point is
yeah. No,
that
it is.
exact
Yeah.
sentiment.
No,
Because you don't
Travis,
want
it
to
would
do what
be.
you're supposed to do. Because like you're supposed to beat G2 in their current form, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I
Right. So
I don't know
they're
how to
doing
say
what
this
they
without
did,
sounding.
which means
Yeah.
that they're not. Like I'm not saying that
So
makes them a success, but if they didn't do what they're supposed to do, then I think that means failure. That's why I'm okay with a middle ground.
It is, but like how BLG is
no.
very beatable. I think with
Yeah.
what they
Okay,
showed
okay.
against
And
T1.
Jamada, give me
Yeah.
the sauce, because last week you told me
his
EU were frauds, and now you can tell me BLG are frauds. It's gonna be great.
well, I'm not gonna sell you the snake oil that is BLG or frauds.
Okay.
What I will say is this is what it's like to have the weight of expectations on your shoulders now, right? You honestly, I think, had a disappointing series versus AL. Game one, obviously, very good. Game two, kind of and then I think game 3 and 4 drafts just really, really didn't give FlyQuest a strong opportunity to play the game. Beating this G2 is the equivalent of G2 in 21 or 22 into, well, I guess which one was the reckless one? Was it 21 was the reckless one, I think? Whichever one the opposite of that, uh, you know, going to an international and 3-0ing NA. That's actually where we're at right now, which I think is something that people are obviously not used to, but that is the position that the ecosystem is at. So the expectations have shifted, and I think have maybe that's not necessarily happened in some people's heads or hearts. But if you're a FlyQuest fan and you're an NA fan, I don't think you can results wise call this a success unless you make it to round 3 and you beat BLG. Uh
Mhm.
And I'm okay
Learnings,
with
I'm
that.
sure
I'm just saying I don't know if I want to call it a failure at this point.
it would, if it's not a
I
success, it would
I
be
could
a failure.
feel that way for me.
It,
It's
it,
Like
called
it,
a false
when are you gonna get
dichotomy,
a more
Jamada.
beatable
All right.
BLG?
it,
No. When would you get a more beatable BLG? Seriously.
not only that. So okay, actually, I'm gonna walk back on the BLG part that Cubby just said for Cubby. Um, I feel like whilst I can certainly agree with the overall sentiment that yes, this version of BLG is by far the most beatable version of BLG that has existed over the last 2 years. Um, at the same time, I don't know how much I want to take from the T1 series just because of the nature of that series, which I'm gonna hate having to talk about the BLG T1 series for the next week because mostly the fans.
I'm
Uh,
enjoying it, so please continue.
but with BLG, it's clear that they came into that game with a very different expectation of gameplay and mentality that T1 came into the game with. Because to me,
Yes.
BLG, it looked like, came in expecting to basically dogfight over everything, start to finish. And not only did T1 beat them at that game in game one, they then very successfully slowed down the game throughout that game and then
It was
throughout the
beautiful.
series.
It was
And they
beautiful.
actually, for the first time in a long time that I can say this about T1, throughout the course of this year, before T1 fans jump me, um, I saw very strong and consistent macro gameplay coming out from T1. Whether it was on their swaps, whether it was objective control.
Playing
I think the
defense,
overall
man.
thing, not just playing defense, but also
Oh,
pre-planning, which is
yes, they
something,
play
oh
defense
my god,
beautifully
I
though.
do
Oh,
not see. I think I've been on here enough times that I would have mentioned pre-planning and how so many teams,
yep.
especially at the high end, tend to lack it. Fuck me, does it like twists my insides anytime I watch a genuinely good mechanical team not pre-plan. T1 used it to their absolute advantage. It felt like they knew at every 90-second interval what the next 90 seconds of their game looked like. And BLG were just not in the same plane of gameplay throughout that series. Does that mean that that's going to be T1 every day? No, because look what happened in CFO, in the CFO series. But with BLG, I feel like I can kind of say the same thing because they have been so volatile as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit there and be like, "Yo, BLG's got fucking railed by T1. Uh, they are gonna be super beatable because they got railed by T." No, they're gonna be beatable because they're a volatile team, and if they show up like how they did against T1, then FlyQuest will have a good shot at taking them down. But if they show up like how they did versus MKOI, or how they tend to versus, a lot of strong teams internationally over the last 2 years, it's still like BLG will just do the thing. So I feel like they're a team that, like, if I was a betting man, my money would not touch BLG like at this tournament. It wouldn't happen because they are too hard a team to predict a lot of the time right now. As shown by, I'm sorry, if you went into T1 BLG saying that T1 were favorites, I don't think you were watching the games. TBH.
You're betting on
Not
T1 showing up as
like
T1 at an
like
international.
you're
Yeah.
you're betting on T1 showing up internationally,
Yeah.
or like in Worlds form at MSI. And like,
They
hats
didn't
off,
need
they
Worlds
did
for him
that.
to beat that team.
Ha-
Yeah.
hats hats off, they did that.
Yeah.
And trust me, I had my serious doubts about BLG, but that is simply how poorly, outside of, in my opinion, basically Doran and Ona, were playing on T1. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I felt.
My
I
concern
Um,
is that
go.
at international events, North America usually gets incredibly unlucky. And you'll have a thing where, like, we'll play, in the past and ages before,
yeah,
G2 will lose
yeah.
to a wild card team, and we'll be like, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, we're gonna fuck it, and then immediately after they'll play an A and play their best game of the tournament, and so that is my concern, is that you're saying they're incredibly volatile, you don't know which one is gonna show up. I'm saying I worry
Yeah.
I know which one is gonna show up, which is this will be the BLG that could win the entire MSI, but it will only be in the match against
I,
FlyQuest.
I mean, look, T1, I mean, BLG are very, very liable to have a bad series and then get angry and then take it out on the next team.
Yeah.
So
Or
So
I
the
don't
next
think,
jungler,
or the next jungler, yeah. So I don't think it's impossible. But actually, speaking on the jungle, I think that is the way that they can beat BLG.
So
Obviously, yeah,
I know I haven't like chipped in yet.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is where I really believe in FlyQuest because
yeah. Hmm.
for me, like it is T1 and T1 played a great series, but they showed a clear roadmap that they used to beat BLG that I feel like FlyQuest as a team already
Oh,
leads into
they,
some of their strengths, but
yeah,
B can also somewhat emulate. So,
yeah.
for example, like Jamada, me and you, we both agree on this from last Worlds. What was
Mhm.
FlyQuest's greatest strength? They bent without breaking. Their ability to like pick the Ivern and the Cassio and understand that, hey, we can give X, Y, and Z and be in the game here at this point. I think that this is a
Yeah.
point where FlyQuest is playing a bit better, still not to where they were at Worlds, but that's always been a part of their identity. And what just T1 proved was good in the BLG. On top of
Mhm.
that, like some of the picks, who am I probably individually most worried about going into that series? It's Bwipo and Quad.
Whippo.
Not just for
Yeah.
their form, also for their opponent's form historically, right? Bin and Knight are terrors to face on like any
Yeah.
game.
Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
Bin was putting it all up in Doran in that series. Like, BLG might have got 3-0'd, but like Doran got 3-0'd also, low key. So
Yes.
like, uh that is definitely a point of concern for Fly for sure.
But at
Um
least for
yeah.
FlyQuest, like again, Quad, what did they open the series with against AL? It was Ori Victor. What's Faker
Yep.
playing against BLG to like, make sure that they can
Ori
slow the game
Victor.
down? He played the best Victor game that we've seen in the tournament so far. That's something I feel like FlyQuest, I have a little bit more faith in
Honkus,
them
but
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Honky, that guy just plays like a man. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um
That child plays like a man. Yeah.
he plays like a man. I respect the hell out of it.
Yeah.
What got them the 3 over G2? Scuman, LeBron versus Inspired Busio. Was that somewhat
Mhm.
G2's own doing? Yes, but also what's the
Yes.
weakness of BLG? They schwan it on. They play as their own
Yep.
unit versus the rest of the team, and that's punishable. And T1 very much exposed that in their series. Do I
Yep,
have faith in Inspired and Busio to actually act as a better unit than Beishuan and On? I think I do. It kind of
I do.
depends on which BOG shows up, but I'm gonna bet on these kids. Like I really would for FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Also, T1 using red side against BLG. FlyQuest has been one of the few teams globally that actually will take red side. I like red side. I think Bwipo or Quad need a counter pick. Lucio has proven that he can utilize counter picks really well. If FlyQuest are comfortable playing that side against BLG, I feel like that's good for them and into the matchup. And also, if you're willing to blind these control mages, that Quad is like willing to do. Again, it's going to take more to slow down BLG than just this. Individually, Fly is not quite as good. My thing is that I think T1 laid a very clear roadmap on how you can play against BOG and where they're uncomfortable. And seeing Beishuan and On be their own unit so often, like do their own thing in their own little world, like the team can make up for it, or what T1 did, deny BLG from having winning sides in mid game, which I think like their uh, decision tree when they don't have a winning side is far worse, the decisions they make, than when they do have a winning side. I feel like that could sometimes patch up a lot of their issues in mid game. And because they've been a knight, they usually just act with a winning side because those guys are Thanos in the side then in so many games. But if you can slow that down and play defense, like this is where I feel like FlyQuest's strength is as a team, that and using their heads. Like BLG for me is the brawn team. And the thing that makes T1 I think so great is that they are a team that can always pass like the hands of the brawn test, like in the history of that whole lineup, right? FlyQuest are going to have trouble doing that, but when it comes to the brains, I trust them a lot more than BLG. And I think that's a
Yep.
FlyQuest that I like, or a matchup that I like for FlyQuest. So I would give FlyQuest a 40 to 45% chance to win this series. And I really think that, like, I agree with the caller and being like, just given how bad BLG is right now, where FlyQuest is at in this tournament, I'm a bit bummed that they don't win this series. Like, I don't think it's an expectation for them to beat BLG, but if we're gonna call this like tournament a success, give the best shot that you can get at BLG. Like, if you don't get to use that when you can beat them, I think that is a bummer.
You just
And I
said
have a lot of
it's
faith
not
in
the
FlyQuest to be competitive.
expectation that
I
they
do.
would beat them, Cubby. And
Yes.
if and I don't know why if it sounds like you're saying it can't be successful unless they are surpassing expectations. I'm saying
I mean,
success
I
is
think
like
that
meeting expectations.
are you going to get a better shot? That's why it's a bummer for me. I don't think you get a better shot at BLG.
No.
Can I
I
can I raise
Yeah,
my
go ahead.
hand here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I wrote down a bunch of points, like my thoughts, because I think of myself like kind of analytical, and the two analysts in the call have already like discussed basically all of them,
Yeah,
which
and they
is
keep
great.
looping. That's like a thing that they keep
Which
doing.
is great.
They'll just go
Talking
So
forever.
one of the things that I wrote down that they haven't talked about yet is I think this tournament, especially in this bracket stage, because I don't know how much I want to judge BLG based on their 6-0 in play-ins, right? In the bracket stage, I don't know how much I trust Knight with a lead this tournament. They have done a lot of work to get him crazy ahead. KC game, game 3 of the T1, I was there, right? Like I saw how much they were doing to get him ahead, and he has had some astronomical leads, and I don't know if he's been like putting up the results that his name would otherwise suggest with those leads. And I think that's a point of attack for FlyQuest.
Yeah, but then Quad is rocking the
I'm
fly tag
I'm a
on
quid
the
guy.
other
Like
end.
I'm not a quad guy. I'm in on the
Okay.
other one in NA.
Hey,
I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
I still favor
That's
Knight in that matchup, even if
yeah.
like I thought JoJo actually played a good series into him, given that he blinded 4 champs. I know he had 2 stinker games. I know Jamada, you're gonna disagree with that. He had 2 stinkers. I thought he
Uh,
made a lot of plays in the other 2 games.
mate, let's not bring up
That's
JoJo unless the
yeah, that's
caller
fine.
brings
That's
up
fine.
JoJo.
That's fine.
Um,
That's fine.
I no, I disagree with that. I think if anything, to kind of loop in a point that Cubby made about R5 and red side being kind of something that Fly are kind of attuned to using. Um, I would argue there's some merit in giving inspired R5, like in circumstances where it makes sense. Especially like towards, let's say it's a drawn out series, like it's game 4, game 5, jungle pick's kind of exhausted. And it's like, you know, inspired is gonna have all this weird like solo queue esque shit that Fly would have prepped to be able to play in pro. Um, that I would expect. BLG would maybe not be ready for. that would still be my main point of attack. I don't think that Knight is exploitable by a team like FlyQuest, in my opinion. Um, that's that's just the way that is. I don't think that the gap is so big between jungle support that we can see what happened in, as an example, T1 game one, the laning phase. Knight was not laning 1v1 basically ever. That just sucked. If you're a BLG fan, or if you were the man himself, Knight, that was not fun. That was not an enjoyable laning phase to play out. And I would be shocked if FlyQuest could emulate something similar without an incredible amount of like early game draft edge to execute it. And even then, you'd be talking about, usually that comes at the cost of later game, which I would still take BLG for. The only thing I think that Fly would maybe have over BLG is I do like Fly's map movement a lot. I feel like like, in the same way that we talk about players like squeezing out the most amount of damage in team fights. I think Fly do the same, but in a lot of map states where they can be down 2,000 gold, 2,500 gold, and they'll still find a way to trade gold in a way that is as graceful as possible whilst losing. And I don't think that is something that many teams in the world are particularly good at. But I think it is one of Fly's specialities that if BLG start to put pressure on them, I don't think you can really count Fly out in terms of game state, because they will squeeze gold out of the map very efficiently.
Okay, so to wrap up the call, do want to ask Cubby and Jamada what you think will happen. What are your predictions for that series?
I'll say FlyQuest 3-2. I think FlyQuest take advantage of the opportunity. I actually do have a lot of faith in this team. Even if
Uh,
I'll give them 45% chance to win. I'll say Fly 3-2.
Yeah, I'm still slightly more BLG favored. I would say I'm kind of like 70% BLG, 65% BLG, 35% Fly. I would say if BLG win, it's going to be a 3-1. I think anything but a 3-2 win from Fly would be against expectations,
The later
my
games are
opinion.
better with them and fearless. Is
Yeah, like
long
if
story
they
short.
get over the
Yes.
hump of game 1 through 3, game 4 and 5 draft wise probably look better for
In
them,
theory,
as
yeah.
long as they don't overcook. Because oh my god, the AL series made me want to. I wanted to shave my head. Like I would have gone bold, or I almost felt like I went bold watching their drafts in game 3 and 4. Just don't overcook. Just like KISS, keep it simple, stupid, and as simple as you need to keep it, and it will probably look fine. It's BLG.
Yeah. Narfidy, any final shout outs here at the end of the call?
Thanks for addressing the Knight point. That was like, I had written down a bunch about like Masu Busio inspired, and you guys had covered that all. Knight was like the last point I wanted some info on. Shout out being at MSI. Shout out Jameis, my buddy who went with me. Him and I have never done a little solo trip, but we were there for Friday and Saturday. My first ever live league event. That shit was unreal, like actually unreal. We were there early enough on Friday that my heckling made it onto Shox's Instagram story. Uh, I got to wave at Travis. I got to tell Emily I was a big fan. Like it was so unreal, especially being there on Saturday with a full house T1
Yeah.
fans, like just making that shit electric. Unbelievable. Shout out my wife and dog. That's it. Have a nice night.
Have a good one. Thank you.
I think I noticed in the last couple of series, it feels like the broadcast is doing a much better job at capturing fan noise, because it sounded weird the first couple of broadcasts, but I think
The
that they have it
thing
pumping
that
through now.
has helped, I think, is that the audience is much more full. So
Let's go. Yeah.
Friday and Saturday, well, one because like the matches, so T1, anytime T1 is playing, the arena is twice as full as almost any other time. Um, like I think, I heard some rumor about how basically there were, half of the tickets had not been scanned until the second half of the day when T1 was playing, which was funny. So, and also I know some people know I drove up here. My car having to find parking, like it was insane on the T1 day. So, yeah, it's very different. But I think also Friday was the G2 Fly match, if I recall. That was the first day of that, or it was the first part of that day. So I think you're hearing the audience a lot more because there's way more audience
Got
to
it.
hear. Um, and I think that will probably stay the course through the rest of
It will.
the time.
Uh,
I think tomorrow's match actually. So there are a lot of LPL fans that are here because there's like a pretty big Chinese
Trying to
population
show up.
in
Yep.
Vancouver. Richmond in particular, which is just south of Vancouver, has a very big Chinese population. And I think there's a lot of students that come from China to live in Vancouver or study here. So that's the other thing is that like during the Gen G BLG match, the the audience was very quiet anytime Gen G was winning. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, hey, we're gonna take a quick break to talk about NZXT. NZXT has been a fantastic partner for us, and I've really enjoyed working with them a ton. They've been fantastic. But they're doing something really cool right now, which is, and I referenced this at the start of the show, their club they've partnered with Int'l to launch a co-branded monthly rewards program called the NZXTX Int'l Club. It offers exclusive giveaways for the PC gaming community, including each month where club members can win a gaming PC, an NZXT Int'l gaming PC, shirts, plushies, or FlyQuest gift cards. You can win up to 2 FlyQuest gift cards. So it's been really cool to see them put this together. You can again, it's exclusive monthly rewards, including that gaming PC. I'm going to go ahead and share a link in the chat for you to go find this. But I know whenever you watch or whenever you watch on VOD or whatever, we have a link to just the general NZXT Travis link, and you can go find that. But I believe you'll also be able to find how to sign up for this club through both their socials and through their website. So you can go take a look for that there. But that's kind of a fun thing that they're doing. It's neat to see them giving away PCs. I know that's like the meme amongst PC companies is everybody's always messaging them on social media asking for a free PC, and this is kind of the cool thing that they're doing with Int'l. So thank you so much to N6T for sponsoring the show. I have really loved working with them. They've been an amazing partner, and I just want to thank them in general for their support so much. You know, they've been a wonderful partner. So thank you to N6T. All right, on to the next caller. A couple of other shout outs. Thank you to Peter Pham for becoming a member on YouTube. The only member so far over on YouTube, but I appreciate it, Peter. You're holding it down for the YouTube community. And then we have Better Call Saul hit 1 year. Thank you on Twitch, Better Call Saul. Brewy for the 20 months and Nunifer for the 4 months as well. Thank you to all of you. It's been fantastic. I see Chronicler in the chat. Chronicler, I assumed you were busy tonight because all the casters have constantly been busy. Otherwise, I would have tried to tag you in here with Jamada. But yeah, hopefully we can catch time to do an interview sometime this week. I'd love to do one, especially given your announcement earlier this year. All right, rawnblade is here. rawnblade, where are you calling from?
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, Australia. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I come bearing, holding my hat in shame. I really feel like it's only fair with Jamada back on the show. I need to apologize to him for the last time I was on the show, disparaging his concerns about the Fearless format and things, the impact they could have on League of Legends. And I feel like I'm finally coming around to some of the Fearless concerns. Although I will say I still believe it's better overall and the trade-offs are worth it. But I feel like now that we're in this international competition, I'm seeing some of the trade-offs play out a bit more.
This is so crazy because I feel like you can no longer criticize Fearless because everybody upholds it as like the greatest thing ever and the reason why these tournaments are really good and all this stuff. So this is not the take that I would have expected.
I mean,
What?
it's
Yeah, sure.
definitely better. Like, I think it is better overall. Like, I'm not suggesting we go back, but I guess the biggest thing for me that I was reflecting on is that the opportunity to see the best players in the world on the picks they are known for has decreased significantly because there's this kind of a meta game now where in addition to getting really good drafts for your own team, you also there's an advantage if you can in fact take away the other team's signature champions and best picks. And so teams are incentivized to actually keep, to keep the best players in the world off their best picks. And because you only have to worry about things once, like in the past, it was like you only have 5 bans, right, and 3 in the first phase. So assuming you're going up against a really good team, chances are someone on your team is getting the pick they're most well known for. Whereas now it's like, oh, we're worried about Knight's Ari, we can just like either ban it or we'll pick it away super early in the series to try and keep it away from them. And so that's the thing that I was reflecting on, that now that we're at an international where it's all the best players and it's kind of like the games are going to be fun because everyone's so good at the game regardless of what the picks are. I think that that's the thing I've been feeling a bit, is it's like, you know, we're missing out on some games of the best players in the world on their iconic champions.
Well, I'm glad I have potentially converted you. Um,
Jamada, have
I
you,
mean,
first off, let me ask, have you come around at all on Fearless after we've
no,
seen
not
it
really.
deploy? Okay.
Nah. I would say I have less of a disdain for it at most, but
Okay, that's
I already
more
did like
around.
I already did all of the assessing of like, all the pros and cons of both, right? It was why I had the opinion I had. In If we're gonna have Fearless, I think it should be, one split at a time, one split off, one split at a time, one split off, something like that. I don't want to sound like a broken record for anyone who's heard, like, when Fearless first got announced a couple months ago. I think I happened to be on this show like the day after or something silly.
Yeah, I remember this.
So I don't want to do like a long 10-minute run again. And trust me, before you jump me for saying I don't like Fearless, I know every single angle. I get it. I have just never been with this idea, simply for the fact of like match quality, as in fidelity of gameplay, which I know for a lot of people don't care about. They care about the entertainment. That's fine. Um, excuse me. But everything is kind of playing out as I thought it would. I know that the fans love Fearless because they don't see the same 3 champs out of like any given role, and that's fine. If that's what the fans want, that's what the fans want. I'm not going to hate on what the fans want explicitly in that direction. I just don't think it's been a particularly worthy trade-off. I think that, to me, I think what we should do with Fearless, if we were to keep it, is effectively have a bit of a hybrid where after about, I'd say, after 2 games, champions become available again. So if you pick a champion game 1, it's unavailable in game 2, unavailable in game 3, and then available in game 4 again. Because to be honest with you, I feel like once we get past a certain point, we're just on like we're on champions that we don't really practice a lot. Like by comparison, I just feel like Fearless reduces a certain level of ability to practice as well, because like scrims have to be Fearless too. And I'm happy to go against the tide. I know, like, again, the vast majority of viewers really enjoy Fearless. But I feel like people haven't realized, like, yo, guys, we drafted a tier list. 9 out of 10 series in Fearless.
Yeah,
Like,
like look at Caitlyn, right? Like moving up the tier list literally, like throughout the tournament.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
if this is your idea of like fun by comparison, then cool, no problem. If that makes it more entertaining for you as a viewer, then I'm happy it does that for you. But my problem still lies in, if the meta doesn't fundamentally change enough in the next 18 months, and I guess now we're kind of closer to the sort of 14-month, almost a year period, are we still going to feel the same way about Fearless now as we will next year? That is my big question, because I think that Riot philosophically are not going to balance away from the way that they have away from the direction that they have balanced for the last 4 years, which is why we ended up with Fearless in the first place.
On that point,
Because
though, Meteos made an interesting point on the dive, which is that he feels like Fearless
Mhm.
means the balance team don't need to stress about pro as much as they have in the past.
Yes.
Where like
for sure,
if
yeah,
if
100%.
they don't need to, if their champ is OP, it's fine because it only plays
Yeah.
one game, and maybe it's a free win or whatever, but you can ban it if you want. Whereas like, and so maybe that means that there'll just be more diversity in the game in general, because that's like one
I've always
fewer
looked at it the
stress
opposite
on their lives.
direction, which is that this hides, like, the balance team must be in favor of Fearless because this hides and masks a lot of imbalance in the game. And that,
I
like,
don't think there's a crazy amount of imbalance in the game, though.
I'm sorry, I'm
They're
not
getting
trying
they're
to
getting the
talk
same
about how
solo queue
much there
data.
is or isn't, but yeah, I know
Sure.
I'm not saying that
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
balance
yeah,
team
yeah.
isn't aware of it coming. I'm saying that like everyone knows when a champion is broken, or they perceive it as being broken whenever it's broken at pro play, and everyone complains about it, and everyone's like, this champion is like broken on this patch. And whenever
Yep.
it's like 100% presence in every match, then that is like something that calls attention to it. This is
Can't
kind of a
ignore
way
it.
to
Yeah.
sweep it under the rug a little bit, and then people can only use like
Yep.
the
I
percentages
mean,
on these third-party websites.
this was a part of what I said when the announcement dropped as well. I was like, look, my opinion on how the game should be balanced is that I think we should just go to more artificially curated metas. I think it would probably make the game feel more fresh more regularly, and Riot have far more agency on what the game looks like at any given point in time. I understand that in some metas that means that some players might feel alienated, etc. I get that. And that's a concern that I frankly don't have a solution to in my own solution. So, no solution, basically what I'm saying, is necessarily going to be perfect. But that is why Fearless is so good, is because it does take off that burden of, hey, like, this champion is OP as fuck, but if it's only showing up in pro play like once a series, then I guess, like, how much do we really need to balance it, really, if in solo queue by the numbers, it's not actually doing too much,
That's how
right?
I felt about Gwen
Uh,
this split, by the way, because she was so disgusting for like 2 patches.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good example.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think that Fearless should be the thing that we do in pro play all of the time. I am not against Fearless existing a split or every other split, basically, was my personal like opinion, because I am simply worried that the novelty of Fearless just wears off. Because again, the philosophy of the balance team is not going to change from what it is unless they actively make a statement that it's going to change. Um, so yeah, um,
Yeah,
I'm glad you kind of came around on it, I guess,
I mean,
or at the very least, see
I'm
my
not where
perspective
you
on it a
are.
bit more.
I'm not all the way where you are, but definitely just
Yeah.
coming around a bit. I think my like solution would be Fearless in regular season, and then maybe like normal in playoffs
Nah,
or
you have
internationals.
to you
But
have to have it.
I know,
You have
but
to have it for a
again,
whole split. Yeah.
exactly. Like I can see the problem in that, but I think what I've just realized is that yeah, when it's actually the best players, like the picks matter less. I think it's really the when you're like grinding out a long regular season and you're just seeing the same matchups over and over and over. Like actually, that's probably where it has even the biggest impact, I would guess.
Yeah, for sure.
It is funny how emotionally charged the fearless conversation is. Like
I
people,
I don't I don't get it.
I don't get it
I
either.
really
Like there are certain things that you just say where like people act as though you're like creating like you're being like culturally insensitive, in the
bro,
league space, and it's like,
anytime I say I don't like Fearless, it feels like I've just walked into like an orphanage and said I have parents and laughed at all the
yeah,
kids that don't have parents. Like it's really ridiculous.
yeah,
And yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
think it just, like,
yeah.
cuts through to something where it's like, the argument for people now, like, I think it made me realize that there are a lot of things that people take for granted about the game, or I took for granted about the game, like, how
Mhm.
infuriating it is for someone to see this champion or this matchup just, like, be repeated. Like, I don't care about that, but I think like, the fan reaction tells me how big of an issue that actually was for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Which is interesting because I am closer to you, Jamada, than I am with the Fearless take. I know this got into a very Fearless conversation. I was curious more
Mhm.
so about tournament meta as well, because I
Oh,
think that Fearless has
yeah,
like
sure.
really shifted up the tournament meta, and
Mhm.
it's funny to see the impact it has even on like fan conversations. With
Yeah.
I think some of the picks that are obviously struggling right now are like TF and Callista, most notably. And it's like, why are we
Mhm.
seeing these champions now? Right? It's like, oh, if I see a game 5 Callista where everything else is off the board, like maybe that's fine. But like, why are we blinding this in game 2? Right? Or seeing Caitlyn just like move up the board throughout the tournament as a very clear, powerful pick in this tournament. From every time we've seen Caitlyn hit the rift.
Yeah, I would really love to see because I haven't checked, but I'd really love to see the presence of champs so far at MSI. just to see if like by percentage just actually shift, like the goalpost has like shifted by a
Oh, from
significant
this
amount.
tournament compared to the last?
Yeah, like even compared to the last, or just like yeah throughout splits, because I actually
I'm saucing a
um
screenshot. Like TF is highest presence right now with 71%.
sure,
Uh,
no, but what I mean is the total number of champions actually having presence. Um,
Ooh.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
because that's what
it's
Fearless
gotten
does.
deep yet. I like we
Yeah,
haven't
yeah, yeah.
I feel like part of that is teams at the tournament and
Mhm.
also Fearless too. I mean, you're right. It's a tier list draft now.
Mhm.
But we haven't seen more champs.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that because I'm looking at it right now. And
Sure.
I'm gonna guess that there's like we've seen 80 unique champs picked and banned so far, from
Okay.
maybe a little bit more. So
Cool.
Good.
All right. Well,
Uh,
hey, thank you so much, Ron Blade, for the call. Anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, always shouting out the Travis Gafford YouTube membership. Particularly good at international events. Like, yeah, there's currently like 6 interviews that are still waiting to be released that are members only. So like, check them out. Um, Also last month, sorry, like or maybe 2 months ago now, Travis did a really great interview with Kobe about living together, which turned into mostly them talking about their love lives. So, if you want a bit of that insight, then definitely worth becoming a member. And on that note, Travis, I wanted to let you know that my wife has just started reading Mistborn. And in line with that, I was like, if you want me to recommend any books that she has been reading, which maybe could help out with, that
With
situation
meeting
in terms
somebody?
of
Yeah.
yeah, like I think there's a lot of series that maybe if
I
that could
don't
be on
think
the
that
level that you'd
reading A Court
enjoy.
of Thorns and Roses is going to be the way in which I meet a woman and become married.
I mean, maybe Shadow and Bone or Throne of Glass, though. Maybe I'm just thinking there are some things where the crossover might hold.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with these. I don't think I will be reading any Sarah J. Maas novels anytime soon, but I am very familiar in Los Angeles. It is like a thing where if I match with somebody on a dating app and they say that they're into fantasy novels, I'll say, "What fantasy novels?" And I already know the answer. So I am very aware of Sarah J. Maas and all these novels. They are not romantasy. I don't
they
think is
love
the
it.
thing that I'm looking for. I'm more akin to try to pull people into Mistborn because while I'm not, Brandon Sanderson once gave a speech about how we should not gatekeep like romantasy lovers, and I'm not trying to. I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
feel as though like I do think Mistborn is a bit of a graduation from. It's a good step from the romantasy stuff. So I don't know, but maybe that's why I'm
Not gonna
single.
lie. I mean, I was really like not gonna say this, but I will let you know that she actually thinks that Mistborn doesn't hold up all the way through the trilogy compared to some other stuff. She said she was really into it at first, and she reckons the world is like is like unique compared to other stuff that she's read, but she like it's lost a bit of the
Is
juice. She
this
says that she's gotten into the third one, so
is this your first wife?
yeah.
Good. Okay, sounds like she will be. Yeah, your first wife. Okay. Well, either way,
But,
think
but seriously, the book Six of Crows, which is like a duology in like the Shadow and Bone series, is like heisty and potentially Mistborn adjacent. So anyway, that's a rec.
yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Have a good day.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thank you so much. See y'all.
That was mean spirited, Travis.
Me? It was a joke.
Yeah,
It was a joke,
that
being
was
like,
mean
like maybe
spirited.
you don't need to have, such it's a haha.
oh,
I don't
we
know if
got the joke,
she's your
Travis.
life partner.
Yeah,
Uh huh.
we got the joke.
She insulted Mistborn. I had to kind of it's a little joke. No offense intended. Just a little hee hee. Okay. I see people in chat calling me a bully. Okay, whatever. We're gonna move on to actually we could take a quick break to talk about Enchanted Travel. I just want to say again, thank you. This is the last time we'll be talking about them on the show, but they sent me on this really cool trip, and I travel a lot for work. I don't usually get to go on very many vacations that are not like me attaching to some sort of trip that I'm already taking for work. Similar to what I'm doing here, where I'm taking this like road trip. I do a lot of things like on the end of it stuff, but it's not very frequent that I get to be like, I'm going to go somewhere. They reached out to me. They are a travel agency out in Nebraska that is just really cool. Josh, who is over there, is a League of Legends esports fan, and he wanted to figure out a way to work with me on something. And what we settled on was like, hey, why don't you send me on a trip? I can experience the trip a little bit and experience working with you, and then we can talk about it on the show, and then some of my content. And so we did this, and they sent me to a really great resort in Puerto Vallarta for a couple days, which was nice to kind of relax and reset before the craziness of June and July hit with all the work that I'm doing. And I just want to let you all know that like before then, I think I was very much of the mindset that like travel agencies were maybe a little dated. Hopefully they don't mind me saying this. That was kind of my mindset, and I assume for a lot of you, you might think that as well. Especially because I considered you, I was under the mistaken belief that you have to pay extra to all this stuff. And while I do think there are probably some agencies that are like that, this was not like that. I learned from them that they actually get paid from the hotels. So it's not a situation where you have to pay extra beyond, like if you were, it's not like you're saving money by going to these other websites that are just sort of faceless entities that you can go book trips with and all that stuff. So it was really neat to work one-on-one with somebody, which is a service they offer for everybody, where you get to give them information about what you're looking for, and then they help you pick a location, a resort, or trip based off of what you're in the mood for, which is really neat. And I love the fact that like everybody, they will never recommend you a place that somebody at their agency has not been to previously. So it's really nice. And I think both for people who travel a lot and are very confident in what they do, it might be worth just giving them a try, letting them know, hey, you're thinking about doing this. And then if you are somebody who's like less familiar with travel, I definitely think this is really nice because they're so good at being able to like not just help you pick the resort, but also help book the flight and the travel from the airport to the resort, do all this kind of stuff so that they kind of give you this itinerary that you just get to follow. So I do want to say thank you so much to them for the whole experience of working with them, for reaching out to me in the first place. It was very different. I know a lot of people have heard me talk about, bigger companies or all this stuff, but it was just, I loved getting to work with like a smaller company that is able to do this kind of one-on-one customer service with folks. And yeah, it's just a very different vibe and some just authentic fans. I made the joke before, but uh, Josh used to be a TSM fan, and so I don't hold that against him as we got to work with together. So thank you so much to Enchanted Travel for the trip, and go check them out. Just give them a try. You don't even have to book anything. Just see what they're about. Have a conversation. All right. Now on to, I think we've got time for two final calls. I know we've got one in
Okay,
the waiting. Oh, looks like we have a
sounds
second
good.
one there. Okay.
Yeah.
Joining us now as a caller, but later on after the show for the prediction show that we're doing is Mihir. Mihir, where are you calling from?
Very close to you, Travis. I'll say that
Yes.
much.
Yeah, I think two floors, one floor even, I think is what we
Speaking of
I'm
were
on
travel,
floor
by the way.
originally.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on floor 7,
Uh,
not to dox ourselves, but
Oh,
so yeah, maybe literally right below my floor. What do you
maybe
want
if
to
you
talk?
jump a little, I'll hear you.
Yeah, exactly. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So obviously, I have my take, but before we get into that, guys, I want everyone in the show to know that Travis said the press doesn't hang out enough. Then the press made plans, and he's sitting out of the plans.
So Drew told me
Nice.
that this is what you
Nice.
guys said, and I don't ever recall saying the press don't hang out enough. I think what I said was that like we should play Commander or something in the press room because I thought that would be very funny, and I learned that several people play Magic. But here's the thing, you are all like 10 years or more younger than me. So like
Fair
yesterday
enough.
I
Yeah.
walked
Fair enough.
by, last night I went out to
Mhm.
dinner by myself, and then I walked by and I saw Drew was sitting outside at a restaurant near the hotel, and Drew was sitting with you and Sam and some other people, and I reached over and
Mhm.
like jostled Drew on the shoulder just to like surprise him because he didn't know I was walking by. And then
Mhm.
I was like, "There's no world in which I would go sit with these people because I would just like I found out I was talking to Drew and Drew's like I'm pretty sure I'm older than all of them, and when Drew is
Mhm.
the oldest person at a table and in a group, I definitely feel like I'm an outsider.
Oh
So
yeah, we were all like
uh,
22, maybe
yes,
23 at oldest.
yeah,
This is
but
my favorite press room drama of the day, by the way.
yeah, but Elk,
Yeah.
Alec, I don't know how to say his name, but Dimitri, who does LPL stuff and who's doing
Mhm.
media stuff here, he was playing Magic with me today. So I will say that
Okay.
like there's been a little bit of commingling, but I'm down. You know what, we'll figure out something before the end of
Mhm.
the event because
Yeah. Yeah.
especially you and I being so close to each other in
Mhm.
proximity, we got to figure it out. Anyway, now that you've
Yeah.
exposed me, what else do
Yeah.
you want to talk about in the show?
So I agree with your take on MSI being one of the best tournaments, and I actually wanted to get into some of the reasonings why. So I've been actually thinking about this a lot because I feel this exact same way. Like I've felt ever since the plans, it's felt like there's almost like this magic with MSI that we've never been, and I've never seen before. Someone mentioned the parody. I don't know if it was you guys or another caller. I wasn't paying attention too much, but I just heard it. I think the parody has been amazing. Obviously, I think Gen G and T1 are both cuts above the rest of the competition, but even like CFOs punching up. I thought some of the GAM players were the best players in play-ins. Like I thought Artemis, for example, was the best ADC in plans. Like I really have enjoyed this tournament thoroughly. Even FlyQuest, I mean, they should have taken AL3, like they should have lost to AL3 too. They just played horribly. But I think competition has been great. I think fans really appreciate only best of fives because historically it has always felt like the first few games of any international are always super pointless. So I think fans appreciate it from a viewer standpoint, from a competitive standpoint. And then I think having such high stakes right off the bat, it makes every game mean so much more. That I feel like I'm having a hard time identifying a flaw with MSI, other than the fact that, the winner will fly to EWC like 2 days after they win. Other than that, like I think MSI is a near perfect tournament and has been a
Yeah,
huge
and I feel
success
like
so
that's
far.
more of an EWC issue than an MSI issue, to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not an MSI thing.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say this, and then I know that like Europe is sad because they went out so quickly, and I don't feel like they were particularly competitive. So I don't know, Jamada, what do you think? Because again, I tweeted even the other day, hey, this is looking like one of the best international tournaments I can remember, and Shock's replied was like, I'm sure it feels that way for you. So like I don't know if it's like just NA feeling good or if there is a lot of parity and like European fans should still really enjoy the tournament and feel like it's good. Like, does it stand on its own? I don't know.
Yeah, of course. This
It
tournament is
should.
fucking awesome. It's the
Yeah, if
best
you're a fan of
format
League.
of any tournament that we get throughout the year because
Mhm.
Swiss is not seeded appropriately. Um, so there's that. Um, so yeah, like there's not really a negative. Like, yeah, MSI is fucking awesome. The games have been very fun to watch. The fact that we have Apex stepping up, like you said, like it's not just CFO, like Gamma really, or like bro. Honestly, both
Yeah,
of
Curio
the
was good too.
of the playing teams, exactly, both the playing teams that didn't make it.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just gonna be frank. Like uh we could have had like them somehow like figured into the main stage, like 10 team bracket or something. Or fuck it, 12 team bracket. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
it would have been sick to see
and
C9
then
here. I wonder. Yeah.
and then some kind of like situation where like maybe they still do play-ins, but it's like losers of play-ins start in losers bracket or some bullshit. Like figure it out. I don't care. I honestly I couldn't give a monkeys.
Hey, Jamana, you know what
Yeah.
tournament actually solved both things that you're just talking about right now? The
Oh yeah.
International for Dota 2. Just,
Oh
you know,
really?
2 big group state, so 18 teams,
Mm-hmm.
go, 2 groups of 9, and
Yep.
if you're top 4, you have 2 lives in the bracket. If you're 5
Yep.
through 8, you have 1 life in the bracket, and then if you're 9th, you're
Oh.
out. It's
Oh
like they just
wow.
solved everything you're talking about.
Wow,
It's always
that
a great
sounds
tournament.
great. It's
Yeah.
almost as if we could have something really cool before the
Yeah.
traditional 8-team tree of top 8 at Worlds. Swiss is great and all, but like if you're gonna do Swiss, like go all the way, man. Seed it the whole fucking
No, I
way,
agree
like
with
properly.
you. I will say that if Riot sticks with the current formula they have, I actually hope they take a lesson from First Stand and
Mhm,
some MSI seeds or like how um, groups finish affects worlds. And I actually know that that's the next caller because this tournament
mhm.
actually has real ramifications on worlds, not just for the teams here, but for the
Yep,
regions too, which I do like.
yeah.
I think that it ties everything together. And yeah, like it sucks going back to Worlds because as Jamada's hinting at, Worlds is not as good of a format as this one. And I think that in
Nope.
the past, like it is Riot's responsibility to any region that they have that exists in this game should be involved in Worlds and MSI. And with, I mean, guys, there are less regions now. So I feel like a lot of the parts of the tournament that people weren't as attached to because those teams were just more distant from being realistic competitors, it's gone. Like the play-in stage, all those teams were competitive. The group stage so far, like every team, even the EU teams have like been somewhat competitive, right? Like they've taken games off other teams. That's something that I don't think has ever happened before, regardless of format too, which definitely helps. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I have just I think I'm a little biased because it is fun to see North America do well, and I love Vancouver. It's such an amazing city. I was so excited when I got to find out that I was going to be here for almost 3 weeks this year, and being back in North America for the first time since 2022 at an international event, I think it's also been feeling very, very special for me. But yeah, I am. MSI has historically been an interesting event to me, but not one that I'm like really excited about because it is usually just like much smaller. It feels really like a not nearly as cool as Worlds. But this year in particular, I feel like this is like the coolest MSI I've ever been a part of. And we'll see. There's still a week, so maybe like the storylines will drop off or something will get uninteresting or whatever. But I've absolutely loved it. It's been really really cool. So I know I appreciate it, Mihir. I think it's been fun.
Yeah, and I also think not this might sound kind of strange, but it feels like it's the first time that Riot has really taken every single gripe that fans have had and addressed them, minus the website. I still don't know like who's playing when without checking Twitter, but outside of the really jank website, it feels like the first tournament where it feels like a lot of the concerns people have had. Because I know, like, for example, with Worlds, people are like, oh, this team promoted because they had to easy schedule, like, for example, FlyQuest last year. But, like, I just feel like from every single standpoint, like I mentioned earlier, it's been fixed. And as a fan, I mean, I've been watching MSI since its original format. I started watching in 2016. It feels like one of the first internationals where everything fans have ever complained about, for the most part, was addressed. I feel like there hasn't been too many pauses. There was quite a few in play-ins, but I feel like it's been pretty solid.
You can't control
But
this, you know.
yeah, it's like usually
You
out of your control. And
can.
then
I don't want to go on a pause rant, but I feel like there are too
Yeah,
many
yes and
pauses.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes and no.
and then also like the trailers have been awesome. Like the bracket stage teasers, trailers, whatever you want to call them. They're legitimately well executed because for first stand, obviously it's a lot more rushed. But when you have time to produce good content, it hits so hard. Like I think everything I've seen out of MSI has been amazing, and it kind of you almost forget that they're only holding it in one arena. It's not a traveling roadshow like a lot of like worlds have been, for example. They're running the entire tournament out of one arena, and no one has complained about that. Whereas I feel like historically, whenever it comes to like a lack of big road shows, people tend to complain. But they've ran it and they're gonna run all the way up until finals out of the same venue. But no one cares because the tournament itself is so high quality. I feel like it's been
Well, in
an absolute, you know.
I think people care less about venues as long as the venue is big
Mhm.
enough, and like this venue
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
really huge, so I think that that helps for MSI. Whereas like normally there's more critic. I don't think people would be happy if all of Worlds was in one venue. The LoL esports stuff is funny. So I don't think a lot of people know this, but Riot has a break that they take every year for a week. And this past week has been the Riot break. And so I think part of the reason they haven't fixed the website or probably fixed I know I saw people in chat talking about how Google it still says that there's a Gam Furier match that's been playing for 8 days. I assume there's like an API thing that's like broken on the right side. It's because they're all on vacation. People who are not, and you would think, oh, surely the website is like critical to like the operating of this event, but I don't. I think those people that run that are just part of a different team at Riot, and so they're just on vacation. So I'm hopeful that
Mhm.
they will fix those issues this Monday when people come back to the office. But I think it's kind of cheesy that these things are not that there's not somebody on call that can like fix it because clearly they know it's an issue because everybody's been tweeting about it, predominantly myself. But yeah, I would have added C9 to the tournament and maybe made it like a 12 team tournament. That's like a thing that I've griped about me here. But to your point, everything else like format, the broadcast, all these things have been really really great. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean that makes me really optimistic for Worlds this year, and Worlds is in NA next year. So it feels like, I don't know, it's like internationals kind of have regained that excitement that I feel like was lost gradually.
Yeah, yeah. And by the
That's
way, here's the other thing. We're talking about this as North American fans, and the audience that are watching this mostly North American fans. It's really nice to have a tournament that is at a schedule that is watchable for us. Because I think when you say like some of the excitement is lost during international events, it's like hard because the Western audience will be like, I can't watch every game because they're all at 2 to 3 a.m. And so this makes it a lot easier for us too. And so I think that's part of the reason North American fans are like celebrating so much. So yeah.
yeah.
But thank you so much for the call. I don't know, Cubby or Jamada, if either of you wanted to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one last thing
Yeah.
on what you were just talking about. If you're complaining about the time zone, i.e., you're not in America, you gotta grow up, man. Like we are
No,
spoiled in Europe.
I'm saying, bro.
Tom literally moved to Europe to do this
Like
shit for like a summer, you
yeah,
know?
for
Like
for yeah, like
yeah,
obviously extreme extreme
yeah,
example for him, but
yeah.
like trust me, once it's not in America, the next 3 international events are gonna be in time zones which are either at the start of our day, sometime in the middle of work, or in the evening, and it's gonna be fine. Like I- in America is just the most unfriendly, or the Americas rather, are just the most unfriendly time zone to watch events for, and that is just the way it is. So like let them have their cake. Like they never get their cake. Let them have their cake. I don't know what the big deal is. Um yeah, that's it.
But they don't want to let
Mhm.
us have our cake, Jamada. That's the thing.
No, because it's literally only EU that sucks. Like even Korea, China, it's kind of like early morning. So yeah, it's like obviously people are
Yeah,
going to
like
work or
it's
college,
mostly
but
it's mostly you. Yeah.
And
I
they
mean
didn't
it's
want to
like,
watch this tournament anyway.
yeah, no, they don't, unless their teams are playing. They really don't care. So I mean, seeing like FlyQuest G2 being able to play, I think it was 800 or 900K. That's pretty awesome. And like the T1 games, I think pulled 1.6 at peak viewers, which for an early MSI game is not bad at all. Like that's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
I think it's their new records as well, so it's like really awesome.
Anything you want to just shout out here at the end?
Honestly, shout out to everyone who's still a fan. I think one thing this tournament has made me realize is NA fans have kind of always had the shorter end of the stick. So if you've been a fan for a minute, or even if you're a new fan, I think it's like really cool that after all these years of kind of mediocrity, you kind of have we finally have the bragging rights. We have a tournament in our time zone again. I feel like, shout out to the fans. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And shout out to the guy at the doner kebab place near me. He gives me a free soda every time I go. So shout out to that guy as well.
Why do you think?
We need to
Does he
call him
recognize
uncle.
you? Is he a Mihir fan?
I just have I mean, I think he's a fan of how
No,
much
no, no.
money I
That's
spent at
just
his establishment.
Ah,
Like,
okay.
but
that's just how those guys get down. If you go
they're
to a
so
place so
nice.
many times, they will just start to treat you nice, bro.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
That's it.
yeah, that's
All right.
pretty much it.
Thanks, Mihir. We'll see you
Yeah,
in probably 10 to 15 minutes for the prediction show.
yeah, sounds good. See you
Yeah.
then.
See that.
Peace.
Cool. We have
Sweet, last caller.
yeah. One more caller. Thank you, Icebreaker Mints, over on YouTube for the membership, and Anivia, thank you for the membership on YouTube. And then over on Twitch we have Brewery Nunifer, Bandicoot B, JB gifted a sub to Hung Stepbro, Gerg with the 22 months, and Kensk, thank you for the Prime. Our last caller of the night is here, Acklon. Acklon, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Western New York State.
Western New York State. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I'm wanted to talk today that FlyQuest is going to beat BLG in less than 5 games. CFO are going to beat AL in their best of 5, and the LTA and LCP will have a banger 5-game series to determine who gets the additional seed to Worlds as the second best region of MSI.
I'm very excited about this take.
Okay.
All right, why don't you give a little bit more explanation on why you're so confident in this?
So T1 exposed that BLG have, as you guys identified earlier, the same fault that G2 have in their lack of synergy between their jungle and support with the rest of their team. And so FlyQuest, albeit they are not T1, FlyQuest do have extremely good team fighting and extremely good cohesion with being the longest held together 5-man roster. And so because of that, they are going to exploit BLG and win that series definitively. I'm not saying it's going to be a 3-0 necessarily, but it's going to be faster than 5 games. And then CFO have shocked everyone with the fact that they are just like, apparently they're the second coming of this region, because for the first time in 13 years, they beat another major region in a best of 5, and they did it definitively so. Now, given it was MKOI, but who I thought was going to be frauds anyways, but I think that they're going to have a really good run at this MSI. Also, apparently on Twitter, they have God on their side because Junja's grandma went and prayed to God, and they have God on their side.
Dude, somebody
So-
showed me that today. I think it was Dimitri who was showing me that that's like one of the most engaged with tweets in League history in a long time. The Dexerto tweet about that. That's funny. All right. Well, setting aside the divine right to win, Cubby, what do you make of the stake?
As someone that thinks that FlyQuest can beat BLG, and that's pretty realistic, I don't think that CFO beat AL. Again, like Mihir said that Genji and T1 look like they were cut above the rest. I'd put AL in that camp too. Coming in, these were clearly the 3 favorite teams. I think from what we've seen so far on the tape, that's still the case. Yeah, so I think like CFO's been fun. I think Honkyu plays like a goddamn man as like one of the youngest players here. That guy is really impressive.
Honky's been
as a mid laner.
awesome.
He has been awesome. Like that guy plays with zero fear.
He's
I love
so
it.
fun to watch.
But no, he's not. That's not going to be enough to overcome Shanks and AL. But I do appreciate the caller at least bringing up CFO and rooting for him, because I think that this team, deservedly so, should be coming out of an international tournament for the 3rd one in a row, walking away with more fans.
Cubby, do you
they
think
deserve it.
T1 is better than AL?
Yes, I have T1 winning the tournament.
Okay, so CFO went 2-3 against T1. So
Okay,
if
yeah,
they
I
can
know,
push
yeah.
2-3 against a team that is better, then there's a chance they can push 3-2 against a team that is worse. That's how this works, right? That's a mathematical equation, I believe.
I don't think AL is. AL is AL. The 3-2 was in a surprise in the first place. With again, to be fair, what Jamada was talking about with BLG earlier on in the tournament. I mean, that the T1 that showed up that day was not as good as the T1 that showed up to beat BLG. And CFO played good enough to beat it, but I don't think that was indicative of T1's skill at this event. The BLG series was very impressive. So I think AL in an elimination best of 5 is going to show up and likely 3-1 them.
All right. And we did talk. I mean, our caller here did say that he thinks that FlyQuest will beat BLG in less than 5 games, but I know you guys already kind of talked a little bit about BLG and your predictions there, and I don't think FlyQuest is going to beat BLG in less than 5 games, so we don't have to talk too much about that. Jamada, CFO, what are the chances we get CFO beating AL?
Sorry, I'm still stun locked by the fact that Cubby has T1 winning the tournament. I just want to get clarification on whether or not that was like
coming
a
in
recent turn of events, or like
No.
that's how we felt coming in.
Your
Because
pick comes Jamada. You got to take some surprises sometimes.
Okay,
I
yeah.
had FlyQuest beating BLG in my room. I had T1 losing the Genji in this upcoming
Uh-huh.
series and then winning against them, going through lower bracket
Okay.
for the finals. Yeah. So
Okay.
how many tournaments has T1 showed up and played like T1?
I
where
don't
we're
think it's that
supposed to
crazy
still
of
be
a take.
surprised, Jamada?
I'm
Yeah,
surprised you're
like,
stun locked. It's not like
look,
he said
I know the
FlyQuest is
season
going to
is what
win.
it is. But like, I favor them against BLG because I see Owner and Carry on my screen, and I see Beishuan on, and guess what happened to the series?
No, that's
Owner
what
and
happens,
Carry
dude.
absolutely just dunked on them.
That's what I was saying. Everybody
Well-
always. I don't watch as much LCK. I'll watch it whenever it's on and I'm awake, but like I'm not like following it. But every time T1 shows up at Worlds, for instance, I know this is not Worlds. Everybody always goes, "Oh no, these you don't understand. Everybody has it in their mind that this is the T1 from last year,
They
and it's
played at
not."
the weekend internationals.
And then at the end
Their
of it,
entire
Faker's
schedule's
like
built for that.
lifting the
Yeah.
trophy. So I don't know. I feel like it's fine.
I'm not doing the whole like I'm not
That's fine.
accepting T1 magic as like analytical substance here,
You
gang.
just have to believe.
That's fine.
I just refuse to bend the knee on that. Like I'm sorry. I will talk about what I see on the Rift, and I praise T1 very heavily for what they did to BLG, and I have since they did it.
You can't imagine that there's a world where like this
CFO
team
AL.
can figure stuff out just for fun, because we're not going to talk about this before finals. But
Okay, yeah, sure.
you can't imagine a world where there's a team where this group of people and their analysts are able to achieve things over a longer international tournament that they can't achieve domestically, in terms of like figuring out
Well, of course,
metas or like learning stuff or
they've
whatever.
they've 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 done it before.
So that's my point. Like I don't know if their
Yeah,
domestic performance.
but I'm
I feel like
still
it's trying
like
to discount.
I'm not trying to say it's not going to happen again. I'm saying I'm not going to use it as analysis until the bloody tournament is over and they're lifting up the trophy.
Hmm,
Like that is just how I see things. Like
that's fair.
I'm sorry that is just the hill I'm.
Well, that's because when you look at the tape, you don't see him winning, and you're not wrong about that.
No,
But I have them
no,
winning, so you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure, cool, no qualms.
Krabi is an
Um,
American sports fan, and in order to be an American sports fan,
yeah.
you have to have this weird idealism in your brain.
About
I feel
feeling.
like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, I think there's worlds where CFO can beat AL, but I think that they don't exist frequently. Um, I think the biggest concern that I have is in Kyle, and I think his overall uh, lack of appearance at MSI so far. And by comparison, I think Kaiwing has had a generally very, very good MSI. I definitely think that he is at times a little bit too overeager to find plays and make plays happen ahead of the rest of his team's tempo. Um, but if he can be reeled in, and I think things like that typically can be, yeah, you know, Hongkyu's been playing like a monster. Yes, Shanks also has, I think, had a pretty good tournament so far as well.
Yes.
Um, we've talked CFO to death. Actually, there's only one aspect of CFO that we've not spoken about tonight on the show,
Top line.
and that's rest and driver. I think that CFO need to keep rest on the bench as much as possible.
I agree.
Um,
Hard agree. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happens, domestically, but so far, rest has just whenever he's been on the Rift, he has just had significantly
Yeah.
worse games than driver. And also it just seems like they aren't utilizing the two for what their supposed strengths are, which is rest is supposed to be the tank guy. Um,
No, driver's
sorry,
tank,
the other way
rest
around.
carry.
Driver's supposed to be the tank guy. Rest
Yeah.
is supposed to be the carry guy. And it's like, cool. Even if you look at both series, right? You look at T1 CFO, game 5, they have gosh, you've made me bucket up a bit, but they had the carry guy in, they had rest in, and we're B1ing on to let Thorin have
Yes.
his way with him on Jace. Like
Yes.
we can't be doing that. And then same thing again, even in the MCOY series, we bring rest in. I think Driver played the first 2 games in that series, I want to say. They bring in rest for game 3 for, kind of like the slam dunk, haha, like rest, come in, bro, get your game. And then he's the carry guy, which means he's probably also the counterpick guy. We're on red side into a player who is known for weird top lane picks and by extension then counter picks. And we blind Yurik into him, who we know has a very extensive list of counters, and Moen picks the most solo QE solo Q1 possible in Irelia. And MCOY made that game work for a large portion of it. The reason CFO lost was because of the topside state. and not even necessarily what Merwin got out of it, but more so what Elyoya and the rest of MKOI got out of it. So yeah, I think that is my only concern for CFO. I think they just need to keep driver in. I don't think there's a world where they do where they play rest more than maybe one game in a series in this series rather.
Drivers and Bessa are like the carries must be really bad from like what we've seen so far. I agree with you. I think they're still going to use both, and they kind of have to for Fearless. But yeah,
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much to Acklon here for the call. Anything that you would add to this before I gave you your shoutouts?
I would say just on the driver versus rest is they should definitely stay with driver because he is in the church of Baus, and that just means he's better. So he should definitely stay in.
his Scion like is noticeably better than the others in the tournament. By the way, like that guy actually plays his one trick really well. It's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I'm dovetailing on the other person's call. Like this MSI has been super exciting to watch, and I'm a diehard now fan of CFO because it's convinced my girlfriend to watch League a lot more because she's like, oh my god, the flying oysters, let's go. So
That's
I
yeah.
really appreciate them for that.
It is a good name. All right. Well, thank you so much for the call. And I assume that was your full shout out.
Yeah, I appreciate CFO for a hilarious name, and I appreciate you guys for what you're doing. And let's go NA. We're going all the way this time.
Okay. Thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
All right, that is the show. Thank you so much to Jamada for coming on. Always a pleasure to have
Yeah.
you here. Really, really appreciate it. You're such a fount of knowledge, League of Legends knowledge about all sorts of different regions. So that's fantastic.
Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
Cubby, do you want
It's
to
a pleasure
give
as always.
a shout out plug here? What do you want to talk about at the end?
No, go FlyQuest. Shout out to Jamada. Thanks, Travis. And excited this next week. I will be traveling back home to play some golf with my old man. So we play an event this weekend.
Nice.
So we
Well,
have
good
3 days
luck.
of golf coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks. It'll be fun. So I'll be in and out of MSI coverage later on. But
yeah.
yeah, thanks for a good show and thanks for coming on, Jamada.
Jamada, what do you want to shout out and plug?
Thank you, Cobby. I am gonna plug. I plugged it last week. I'll plug it this week. I said there was a Mundo video coming out to do with perception strength and a couple of other topics. That video released. It's on YouTube and TikTok. You can find that by searching up Jamada clips on TikTok, and maybe it still comes up if you type in Jamada clips on YouTube. But yes, made those videos. They've done very, very well. I'm very happy. And I'm doing another video, surprise, surprise. But this one's going to be a history video on kleptomancy because I think people have forgotten about the ill ways of which that rune existed.
The Shy versus Naguri is going to be in there, or Naguri is going to be in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be very fun, and yeah, more videos on those channels coming sporadically over like every week and a half or 2 weeks or so.
Nice. It looks like Numi just linked your short in both of these chats, so people can go take a look at it. Thank you, Numi.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Numi.
Yeah. For me, thank you to everybody who showed up to the draft today. We had like a smaller group, but it was cool to hang out with people and play Magic the Gathering in person at Magic Stronghold. Thank you to them for hosting. It's just, I like when I travel getting to meet people who are also League fans and getting to play Magic with them. So we drafted some Final Fantasy. Kangas beat me. It was very frustrating, but I had a good time. Shout out to Vancouver and the fans that are in Vancouver. It's been a long time since I have been, as I said, at an international event in North America, but there's so many people who've come up and said really nice, encouraging things to me, which has been emotional. But yeah, thank you to everybody who did. Good luck to FlyQuest. We will not have a show next week, and maybe even the weekend after, because I think we're dodging EWC, and that's probably the 2 episodes that we would dodge talking about it. So we will see you all on almost certainly the 28th, unless something weird happens. So I know this is the longest time we'll gone for a while without Hotline League, but hopefully you all can hang out. A lot of interviews going up on the channel, so including a really beautiful one with Masu's family. So thanks everyone for watching. This has been Hotline League. We'll see you for the next episode in a couple weeks. Bye.